he's more versatile than people give him credit for. It's like when we talk about Golovkin, right? We stress so much, we worry, we look at his power punching so much that we forget that he's got the best jab in the sport statistically. He's the only fighter in the sport landing double-digit jabs per round, Gennady Golovkin. So you lose that in thinking about everything else he does well, especially the power punches. When it comes to Figueroa, we focus so much on the pressure fighting, on the high output, that we forget that it takes a lot of sweet science to get on the inside and go to work the way he does. It's not a tall fighter's, usually it's not his recipe, not his strength to get on the inside and let his hands go and work with his hands free. But you have to have a special type of combination punching in order to be the taller fighter, go to work on the inside with your hands free, go to the body, go back upstairs. And he's got that. He's got versatile combination punching as well. People focus on how much he gets hit, but that's part of his game, right? He's trying to overwhelm you with offense. His offense is his defense. He's going to get hit on the inside when he's trading, but pay attention when he's going in. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it takes a sweet science to get on the inside without getting hit, and Brandon Figueroa does that. So I like him at 126. I think he's going to be even stronger at 126. His power punching is going to translate at 126. He's not going to have to worry about the rehydration after the weigh-in, because I think the last fight with Stephen Fulton Jr., he was struggling with weight, and he still arguably almost won that fight.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a pound-for-pound talent in Stephen Fulton Jr., the best guy at 122, and Figueroa arguably beat him. Okay, so this is a talent we're working with Figueroa. I think he fits in at the top of the picture already at 126. And the fact that Vargas is calling out Leo Santa Cruz instead of the guy who won the WBC Eliminator in the co-main event tells you a lot about what he thinks about Figueroa. Because remember, we can tell everything we need to know about a fighter by two things. One, how do their handlers handle them? Are they aggressive in stepping them up? Are they? Does it take a while, like a Tank Davis? We're a decade into his career, and he still has one fight against a top 5 opponent. That tells you a lot about a fighter. And then second, how do their peers in their division react when their name is brought up? And when Ray Vargas in the post-fight interview, when Figueroa's name was brought up, he brought up Leo Santa Cruz.
Straight away.
He didn't want to talk about Figueroa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned some of the subtle things that he does really well, because when I was watching the Castro fight, I kind of took a second to just watch his feet and his movement. And the subtle thing he does really well is when his opponent moves, he almost copies their movements, and he forces them then to engage, because they get so they feel like they can't escape, and they're almost like, well, I'm just going to have to try and fight my way out of this. And then they quickly realize they can't do that either. But some of the other crafty things, like I actually think some of the things he does on the inside would probably get pulled up by a referee if he actually wasn't so crafty at being able to do it. Like, he does some really sort of almost like veteran moves on the inside that he's able to sort of get away with because he's so smart and disguises it so well. And I think his size kind of helps with that as well a little bit. Obviously, he'll look now to just kick on straight for a world title. He'll want the biggest fights at 126, which is obviously, as we mentioned, the guy that doesn't want a part of him in Ray Vargas, but that's what Brandon Figueroa will want. He'll ultimately want to aim for that. How do you kind of see, obviously we saw Ray Vargas in the main event, but how do you think Brandon's going to kind of match up in those sort of top fights in the division?
I think Figueroa matches up with Vargas well, and I think Vargas knows that, and I think Vargas's team know that, which is why they're kind of deflecting when Figueroa's name comes up, because I just think Figueroa is going to get on the inside of that jab and go to work on a taller 26-pound fighter and really dig into Vargas' body. And I just think when we talk about Figueroa and who can beat him, the Stephen Fulton Jr. fight proved to me that you can't just be an excellent boxer to beat this guy, to beat Figueroa. Because you would say, okay, yeah, Figueroa is a pressure fighter. The lazy narrative would be, yeah, Figueroa is just a pressure fighter. He's going to come straight forward and try to work his way inside. So anybody with good lateral movement, the jab, and counter punching can deal with that and beat him. But Stephen Fulton Jr. is one of the best pure boxers in the sport, pound for pound. And he went life and death with Figueroa. He was forced into trading with Figueroa. Like you just said, Figueroa forces fighters into his fight. And the Fulton fight proved that, because Fulton didn't want to fight at that pace. Fulton didn't want to trade, but he had to. He had to in order to win rounds, because if not, just the pure activity of Figueroa would have won enough rounds to win Figueroa the fight. So that's the brilliance of Figueroa. He knows he's going to force these guys into that type of fight. The other thing about Figueroa is I don't think he gets credit for the high IQ that he has. He saw that the referee gave Castro another chance after the third round, because he landed like 15, 20 consecutive shots while Castro was against the ropes. A lot of referees would have stepped in there, and I think Figueroa expected him to. So the next time Figueroa got his opportunity, he flipped Castro against the ropes and then went to work 12 to 15 consecutive shots, because he knew the referee's not going to give him another chance. Let's just end the fight now. But I like Figueroa against Ray Vargas. I like him pretty easy, to be honest. I like him against a lot of guys at 126. The fight that I want to see is Navarrete versus Figueroa. I just think that would be fireworks, and you have to fight fire with fire when you're fighting Figueroa. You got to go through the fire, and Navarrete could possibly do that.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a high output fight. That would be certainly an entertaining one. Obviously, we're going to talk about Bam Rodriguez, but we spoke about a name there in Leo Santa Cruz, and I'd kind of like to sort of get your opinion on what he's doing, really. Obviously, we know the Lee Wood fight was ordered a couple of months ago now. It's been holding out. They talked about purse splits and stuff. I've said on my channel before that I think Leo's ultimately signed out of boxing at this stage mentally. I don't think he's particularly interested in it, unless he's kind of not fully retired, but he's kind of like, well, if the right fight's there, I'm still going to take it because there's money involved. But obviously the fight he's being ordered to take, he doesn't want in Lee Wood. Do you think it's a case of he'll eventually end up just taking this Lee Wood fight if the money comes there? Do you think the WBA are finally going to intervene? What do you think will kind of play out with Leo?
I don't understand. This is one of the biggest question marks to me in boxing, is how does a guy not defend his title since February 2019, and we're sitting here July 2022, and he still has his title?
Still has it.
How is that possible? How is that possible? So, you know, I hope they force it too. I would love to see Lee Wood get the fight. Lee Wood's performance against Mick Conlon was phenomenal. That was the fight of the year so far to me. That was a great fight, fireworks. What Lee Wood was able to do down on the scorecards, time running out to stop Mick Conlon, was beautiful. And Lee Wood deserves his title shot after that. He's earned it. That's what mandatories are for. You work your way up the rankings, you win the mandatory, you win the eliminator, and you get your shot. So I don't understand how a guy who hasn't defended his title in 3.5 years, how is he able to keep it? And somebody put in the comment section, Al Heyman, there you go. There you go. Like, I don't understand how he's still got the WBA strap. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's one of the most baffling things in boxing to me, how this is possible. But what I would like to see is Leo Santa Cruz forced to fight Lee Wood. And if he doesn't want to fight the fight, vacate your title and let Lee Wood fight somebody else for the vacant belt, because he deserves it. And then if Leo Santa Cruz vacates the belt and he figures that Ray Vargas is the bigger fight, go fight Ray Vargas. But I'd much rather see Ray Vargas versus Figueroa. Ray Vargas should fight his mandatory. And by the way, Figueroa is a big name too. And then you fight Leo Santa Cruz should fight Lee Wood. That's what I'd like to see as a boxing fan. The mandatory process worked here. The right fighters went through the mandatory process. So fight the fights. And if they don't, kick them off the pot. Get them out of here. Like you said, Leo Santa Cruz seems to be just hanging around just in case something happens. But he just fought at 130 in a fight that nobody even paid attention to, and he still got his belt at 126. How is that possible?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the amount of people